Guys, we have major breaking news that is absolutely critical, absolutely huge for the future of college football. College football potentially breaking off from the NCAA. This is something that's been rumored, and I want to draw everyone's attention to the idea that college football potentially could do this and really govern itself. We've also got Oregon's AD making some really interesting comments as it relates to their grant of rights deal. And what is he saying? We're going to get to that. But first, guys, we've got a very disturbing headline. This came out earlier this afternoon. It says, report NCAA unlikely to approve updated transfer rules ahead of 2022 season. It's one step forward, two steps back with the NCAA. It really is. We were hoping the NCAA would do the right thing, put in transfer portal windows to give these college rosters a level of organization. But instead, it looks like they're fumbling the ball again, and they're not going to be able to pass any sort of rules that would instill two transfer portal windows into the NCAA. And of course, we know the NCAA has done such a horrible job at policing the NIL with blatant cheating. We've got Texas A&M once again ready to go off the rails, blatantly cheating. Miami, Florida, Louisville, the list, Tennessee, many of these schools horrifically cheating, and there's no punishments. We've got serial liars like Jimbo Fisher running around doing whatever they want. It's unbelievable. And now the transfer portal, the one area where we thought we could see some policing, we could get some level of organization to where you can't just transfer at any time. You've got to do it within a certain window so we know who's going to be on our roster. That's not going into effect. At least it doesn't look like it. It was labeled unlikely that would happen earlier today. But let's get to the big news. We've got Oregon's athletic director coming out and talking about the grant of rights deal. He was asked several times whether Oregon would sign a new grant of rights deal. He did not say yes, but emphasized that short-term TV deals are better business-wise for the conference. They're not better business-wise for the conference. They're better business for Oregon. Because, guys, Oregon does not want to be tethered to a bad, decade-long grant of rights deal, similar to what's happening in the ACC with Clemson and Florida State. They have a horrible grant of rights deal. They're going to have to try and get out of that deal if they want to move to the SEC, if the SEC expands to 20 teams. Oregon is sitting here saying, we're not going to make the same mistake that Clemson made, that Florida State made, that North Carolina made. They're stuck in their grant of rights deal unless they can somehow get lawyers and get out of it. They're saying, look, we haven't signed anything. We're willing to stay in the Pac-12 right now until we get a better opportunity. Until a better opportunity presents itself, we'll stay in the Pac-12. It gets interesting if the Big Ten and the SEC make it abundantly clear to Oregon and Washington, we're not interested. Does Oregon then consider the Big 12? That's where it gets interesting. But right now, if you're Oregon and you even think you have an iota of a chance to get into the Big Ten or the SEC, there is no point of tethering yourself to the Big 12 conference. The Big 12, according to the numbers, their media deal is going to be more than the Pac-12. The rumor numbers that were released, ESPN apparently made the Pac-12 an offer on their Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 media rights, getting the full package of the Pac-12 games for around $24 million per school. It's a 12-year deal, and it would pay schools $24 million, which is it's not nothing, but we've been hearing reports that the Big 12 could get double that per year, and obviously the Big 10 and the SEC are over $100 million when they reach their new TV deals with their expanded conferences. So Oregon, they have all the incentive in the world right now to wait it out, Sit back, see what Notre Dame's going to do, see if the college football playoff gets expanded like I think it will by 2025, and say, listen, we're not tethering ourselves to a long-term grant of rights deal. We're also not joining the Big 12 right now, because we understand that we could probably make more money if we went to the Big 12, but if there's a chance we can get into the Big 10 or the SEC, we are not going to, sign a massive decade-long commitment with the Big 12 if there still is a chance to get in with the Big 10 and the SEC. And then is there legitimately a chance Oregon could get into the Big 10 or the SEC? I'm not going to say one way or another. Really, guys, if we're being honest, let's be real about it. Nobody knows if there actually is a legitimate chance, if it's 50% chance, if it's 25% chance, if it's 60. Nobody really knows. I've reported they're probably going to get in. I've also reported they're not going to get in. It is a little bit of bad reporting on my part, but I'm just saying different people are saying different things. Nobody knows what's going on. Oregon obviously is optimistic to the point where they're saying their AD is coming out and saying this grant of rights deal, we can sign it and we can be Pac-10 strong or whatever, but there needs to be zero exit fee. We need to be able to opt out of this thing. That's really the key. Zero exit fee. Oregon wants out at any point. They can leave. That's the deal with this contract. And then he goes on to talk about the reports of the Big Ten possibly being interested in Oregon. We're not chasing rumors. We've been working hard with the other 10 members of the Pac-10 to keep focused on getting this media rights deal strong. So that's a little bit of political correctness right there, talking about keeping the Pac-10 strong and then saying we want no exit fee. I mean, come on. So what I think is happening here, it's very clear, it's very apparent that Oregon wants to be at a better position in college football, whether that's the Big 10, the SEC, or maybe even the Big 12. They looked at the offer that ESPN reportedly gave them, and they said there is no way we are doing anything to where we're making a commitment to the Pac-12 for a long period of time. And right now, Oregon and Washington have tons of leverage in the Pac-12. I think if both of those teams left for whatever conference, the Pac-12 would essentially at that point become basically a slightly better version of the Mountain West at that point. And then, of course, you've got all the rumors the first week of August, what's going on with Arizona and Colorado into the Big 12. That's another video for another day, but I just wanted to talk about some interesting comments. It's very clear Oregon's position is that we're not happy with our current spot. We're also not going to go run into the Big 12. We want the Big 10 or the SEC. That's what I think Oregon's doing, and they're saying, let's wait, let's see, calm down, Oregon and Washington. Let's see what happens with the Big 10. Let's see what happens with the SEC. If they both expand to 20 teams, they're going to need that we might get invited, and I think anyone who says Oregon's never getting into the Big 10 is just speculating. It's the same thing. If you were to say Oregon is getting into the Big 10, Oregon's not, we're all just speculating. I think Oregon is sitting back and they're cautiously optimistic. There could be a spot available in the Big 10. They want no exit fee. They want to get out of the Pac-12 at any point possible. So that is the big news from the Oregon AD. We've also got this story, and this is just more something I want everyone to be aware of when it comes to the future. I'm not talking about next year or even the year after that, but down the line with the way the NCAA has policed, or really hasn't policed, NIL and the transfer portal, we could see something like the NCAA shouldn't govern college football. Take a look at this quote. I've had conversations with several of the FBS commissioners, and I've been surprised by the unanimous support for the idea among the folks that I've spoken to about taking college football rulemaking and football rule enforcement out of the NCAA and investing it in an organization that is run by the 10 FBS conferences. And I think this is the evolution of college football. And if there's one thing that is apparent, the NCAA lack of authority when it comes to NIL enforcement is the #1 reason where I would say there's no freaking point to having the NCAA govern college football. That is the major change in the 21st century. It's NIL. It's kids getting paid. So let's make sure we police this, and if somebody does something that is against the rules or they're skirting through things, let's make sure they get punished so other teams don't also do it. So in 2022, we had one team go off the rails. They got away with it. Not only did they get away with it, they got rewarded with signing the greatest class in the history of recruiting. Teams like Miami see that. Teams like Florida see that. Teams like Tennessee see that. Teams like Oregon see that, and they say, that's rewarded? Why don't we just do that? So, and the NCAA does nothing about it. There's no investigations. It is unbelievable. So it's this idea, what even is the point of the NCAA? They can't police the transfer portal. They can't do anything about NIL. You need to break away. Possibly college football is at the point where, it's actually, I think, is losing popularity right now. I've talked to people, guys. The popularity, people are saying, we're just not interested in seeing, USC, UCLA, and the Big Ten. It is ridiculous. So it is losing popularity, and the main reason, it's due to NIL. It's due to all this stuff. You talk to these people, they're like, I'm done. I'm not watching another game. I understand it's bad right now, but hang in there, and hopefully college football. I think once we get the expanded playoff, it's going to get better. But the problem we're running into, and it's the elephant in the room, this NIL recruiting crap cannot continue. It is literally cancer for the sport. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about when it's basically half the teams are cheating and saying nobody's enforcing it, so we're just going to cheat. And the other half saying we shouldn't cheat because it's illegal. But then again, nobody's enforcing it, so it's like, do you start cheating? It is cancer for the sport. This needs to be figured out immediately. Okay, and I've labeled so many ways to handle this type of stuff, but they won't do anything. So this could be something we see, a breakaway possible conference. We've also got this rumor, and guys, I'm losing a little bit of faith in this source after this. Not saying it's a done deal, but there have been, absolutely have been talks about the Big 12 partnering with the Big 10 for the Rose Bowl. Guys, I don't know, man. I don't know where you're getting that from, brother, but that is not something that's going to happen. That type of stuff, it's like, do you really believe this source if they're going to say stuff like that? But then we've also got ESPN has been quietly pushing for a Big 10 SEC Rose Bowl. So don't get too excited yet. There's also a chance that the New Year's Six Bowls all become absorbed into the expanded playoff. That's what I think is most likely going to happen, and the 12 team, I agree. But then he also says, personally, I would rather see the first round of games played at the on campus, basically. But then he says that's not happening. So that's interesting, because we have speculated if we go to a 12-team playoff, the first round should be on campus. And again, I would take this source with a grain of salt. He said several. I mean, when you, the idea, well, listen, imagine if he's right, Cal and Stanford going to the Big 12, but that should have been the first alarm. Cal and Stanford going to the Big 12, really? But then this next one, like the Big 12 and the Big 10 partnering for the Rose Bowl. Come on, man. Maybe, listen, I don't know. I just wanted to share it because it was funny. But that is interesting that he is saying there's going to be no on-campus playoff games. You think it would help for revenue, but I don't know how the idea is in terms of those contracts work. Like with the Fiesta Bowl, do they have to play it on a neutral site? Is that what it says in the contract? I don't know any of that. So, but again, if you do have the 12-team playoff, theoretically, the first round wouldn't include the first 4 teams. So you would have to almost have on-campus games, but because they wouldn't be playoff games. If you look at how the bracket is set up in a 12-team playoff, the first round is 5v12, 6v11, 7v10, 8v9, and then the winners of that would play in New Year's 6 games against the top 4 teams. You guys get what I'm saying? So, I mean, maybe those games would also be neutral site, but it would be so fun if we got on-campus games. Neutral site, like, I understand definitely the national championship. The national championship and the 2 semifinal games, I'm fine with being neutral site. Of course, they should be. You know, you've got in the NFL, the Super Bowl is neutral site, right? So we understand it. But it would be great to get some on-campus games, and I thought that was interesting there. So, guys, the main stuff, it is Oregon's AD coming out and saying, we're not committing to anything. We want a short grant of rights deal with the Pac-12 right now. We're staying in the Pac-12 until we get a spot in the Big Ten or the SEC. And in the event we don't get a spot in the Big Ten or the SEC, we will then evaluate our options and think about joining the Big 12. That's what they're saying right now. So, guys, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.